All right, so today we're diving into the life and work of Bartolomeu Campos de Queirós. And you've brought, wow, a really interesting mix of sources here. Encyclopedia entries, we've got some biographical pieces, even excerpts from Vermelho Amargo. Tell me, why him? What makes his work so fascinating?
Well, you're in for a treat with Queiroz. Because he wasn't just writing, children's stories. He was exploring, I think, some really profound philosophical concepts, but through a child's perspective.
Okay, yeah. So it's like we're talking about someone who really understood the power of words to shape young minds.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Queiroz, he was born in 1944 and really dedicated his life to crafting children's literature until he passed away in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And his work, it really resonated, earning him some very prestigious awards. We're talking about the Djibouti Award, that's Brazil's equivalent of the Pulitzer Prize, and the FNLIJ, which is a highly regarded international children's literature prize.
Those are some serious accolades. So, I mean, clearly a major force in Brazilian literature.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about the philosophical depth of his work. What's the story there?
It's really interesting, because his writing, it kind of delves into these really complex themes: loss, resilience, the power of language to heal. And even his global editorial bio, it kind of captures this essence when it says, I'll translate in a second, but "Sou frágil o suficiente para uma palavra me machucar, como sou forte o suficiente para uma palavra me ressuscitar."
Okay, yeah. Can you translate that for us? That feels significant.
Yeah, absolutely. It translates to, I'm fragile enough for a word to hurt me, as I am strong enough for a word to resurrect me. And, just this statement alone, it speaks volumes about his understanding of language's impact, especially when you think about it in the context of writing for young minds.
Yeah, to acknowledge that vulnerability, that potential for both harm and healing, I think, through words, and especially, like you said, in children's literature, that's quite profound. What do you think contributed to this perspective for him?
Well, this is where I think his own life experiences really come into play. Queiroz, his childhood was marked by a very significant loss, the death of his mother when he was only 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
And this experience, it deeply, deeply influenced his writing and this understanding that he had of a language's power.
Yeah, I mean, of course. To experience such a profound loss at such a young age, it's bound to, shape your worldview and your understanding of how stories can heal. It's like you can almost see those childhood experiences woven into like the fabric of his stories,
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up in Papagaios, Minas Gerais, which is a small town in Brazil, Queiroz, he developed this really deep connection to the power of storytelling. And this early experience with losing his mother when he was so young, it became like a recurring theme in a lot of his work.
It's almost as if he's like exploring the healing power of language through these stories. Would you say that's an accurate assessment?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really insightful observation, actually. His writing often delves into the complexities of grief, that search for meaning, in the face of loss, and the ways in which words can both comfort and challenge us, especially during those difficult times.
Well, he's doing all this in children's literature. That's incredible. I mean, it really speaks to the universality of his themes, right? It's like he's tapping into something that resonates with everyone, regardless of age.
Precisely. And I think he understood that children, perhaps more than anyone, they're grappling with these big questions about life and death, about love and loss, and they feel these emotions so deeply, even if they don't always have the words to really express them. And I think Queiroz gave them those words.
Yeah. And not just words, but like, we see in the excerpt you pulled from Vermelho Amargo, vivid imagery, symbolism. Can you tell us more about how he uses language in this specific work?
Yeah, so Vermelho Amargo, it means bitter red. And it's a really, really powerful example of how Queiroz uses language to really sort of explore those complex emotions. So the story centers around this young boy who's coming to terms with the death of his mother and then the subsequent arrival of the stepmother. And he uses the color red, a color that's so often associated with, passion, love, anger, even blood, to kind of symbolize these really tumultuous emotions that this young protagonist is experiencing.
It's fascinating how he takes this like everyday object, the tomate, and it's transformed into this potent symbol, of love and loss and the bittersweet nature of life. It's like he doesn't shy away from those difficult emotions, even when writing for children.
Exactly. The tomato with that vibrant red hue, it becomes this vessel for exploring those raw, sometimes messy emotions that come with, navigating grief, navigating those family dynamics. and just that search for one's place in the world.
Yeah, and it's almost as if the tomatoes like become characters themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they embody all those like unspoken tensions and complexities, especially within the family. It's such a clever way, I think, to explore those dynamics.
Yeah, precisely. And I think what's so striking is how he uses language to bring this imagery to life. Like even translation, you can just feel the poetic rhythm of his words. These really evocative descriptions, that paint such a vivid picture in your mind.
It's true. Yeah, you can really sense that. Even in the excerpt you shared, there's a musicality to his writing. It's like it transcends language in a way. So, I mean, zooming out a bit here, what would you say is Queirós' lasting impact? I mean, we've touched on his use of language, this exploration of complex themes, but how do those elements kind of contribute to his legacy as an author?
Well, I think if we connect this back to the bigger picture, Queirós' impact, it goes way beyond, just the realm of children's literature. He's considered like a literary giant in Brazil. His work is studied in universities, and it's celebrated for its depth, its insight. He's considered a humanist, someone who really grapples with those universal truths of the human experience: love, loss, resilience. And he does it in a way that resonates with readers of all ages.
That actually reminds me of the quote from his Museu de Pessoa interview. He said, "Beauty is everything you cannot see alone." It speaks to that idea of shared human experience, right?
Absolutely. Queirós, he firmly believed that true beauty is found in connection.
Yeah.
It's in sharing our experiences and our perspectives with one another. And I think, his work, it embodies this belief, inviting readers to kind of explore those depths of human emotion, to connect with the world around them on a much deeper level.
It makes you wonder, how much more could we glean from his writing by experiencing it in his native Portuguese? To really encounter those nuances of his language, the rhythm of his words and in their original form. It adds a whole new dimension to the reading experience, don't you think?
It certainly does. It raises a really fascinating question, I think. How does language shape our perception of literature?
Right.
How might reading Queirós in Portuguese, deepen our appreciation for his artistry, those layers of meaning embedded within his work? It's really fascinating to consider.
It really is. It's definitely something to ponder. Well, this deep dive into Bartolomeu Campos de Queirós has been incredibly insightful. It's amazing to me how these stories that seem so simple on the surface can contain such depth, such complexity, a profound sense of empathy.
It's a powerful combination.
It is. So the question becomes, what kind of stories did he actually tell?
Well, if you look at his Wikipedia entry, it lists a few. Gives you a little taste.
Yeah.
There's Somos todos igualzinhos. We are all alike.
Wow, tackling big themes, even in the titles.
Oh, absolutely. And you see that even in another title, De Noem, like from no to no.
Oh, I love that. So it's about like that childhood defiance, finding your voice.
Exactly. Maybe a little bit of rebellion sprinkled in, which I'm always here for.
Right, and that really speaks to his understanding of kids, not shying away from those tougher emotions.
And that's something, speaking of tougher emotions, we see so clearly in Vermelho Amargo, Bitter Red.
Yeah, that excerpt, even just the summary, it hints at something really heavy. The loss of his mother, a stepmother coming into the picture, and this recurring motif of the color red, representing both love and pain.
And what's really interesting about Vermelho Amargo is it's deeply personal. Like, Queirós drew a lot from his own life for that one.
Oh, wow. So it's adding like an extra layer of depth to the story.
Absolutely. And the excerpt we have here from the PDF, it starts right in the thick of it.
Okay.
The young boy in it, he says he needs to lie to himself just to get through the day. Imagine that.
Oh, that just breaks your heart, This child using words as almost like a shield to deal with his grief.
It's such a powerful illustration of how Queirós captures those unspoken, complex emotions of childhood. And he does it through such vivid, like, sensory language, too.
Yes. Remember how he talks about the coldness of those May mornings?
Yes.
Or the sharp feeling of a knife cutting through tomatoes?
That's like you're right there with him, feeling that chill, that sharpness.
It's so real, so immediate, and it's interesting how he uses that tomato not just as a simple object, but almost like a symbol.
Oh, absolutely, especially in the context of the stepmother's arrival.
It's almost like it embodies the unspoken tension, the shifting dynamics in their relationship, right?
Exactly.
And it's not just the tomato, like even the way he writes about food, there's this one line about the mother's cooking, it's like,
by the stove, she would saute the rice. The smell of fried garlic woke up the air and stirred the appetite.
The way he paints that picture with just like scent and taste.
It's so evocative.
It is. Like you can practically smell it.
You can, and it takes you back, doesn't it?
Mm.
To those like core memories.
It does. If I had to pick like one smell that takes me right back to childhood, it'd have to be like my grandmother's cinnamon rolls baking on a Sunday morning, you know?
Oh, there's nothing like it. In Queirós, he really understood how to use those sensory details to tap into something deeper.
He did. And the critics noticed it too. Like in the PDF, there's this quote from Henrietta Lisboa, and she says he was able to tap into this world of pre-existence and innocence, which, I mean, for a children's
author, high praise.
It's huge.
Especially coming from another writer, it speaks to his understanding of that inner world of a child.
Yeah, that sense of wonder, but also the complexities they face.
Absolutely.
And what's even more amazing is, like, this wasn't just him making stuff up. The PDF mentions how Vermelho Amargo and a lot of his other works, they're heavily inspired by his own life.
He wove his experiences into his stories.
Yeah, and I think that's why they resonate so deeply, because there's this rawness, this honesty to them.
It's authentic. You can feel it.
Exactly. Bartolomeu Campos de Queirós, he wasn't afraid to explore those really complex emotions. And through his words, I think he reminds us that even in the toughest of times, there's always beauty, there's resilience, and there's always a story waiting to be told.